Hello, good evening. Episode 11, Link Building Fundamentals. George Blanford, CEO, owner of UK Linkology. I teased it earlier, didn't I? Said that I was going to record a video about international SEO. So this is the episode. So 4 years ago probably now, didn't have it, didn't have international SEO. I persuaded Jason, the co-founder, who actually founded the business, and my co-director, um, to put up an international page because I thought it would be sensible to see if we could get some business in that territory. And he put it up, and literally less than 2 weeks later, we had one of the biggest clients. I think the biggest client we've ever had, one of the biggest brands in the world. I can't name it for obvious reasons. One of the biggest brands in the world basically dropped into our laps. And after about 2 or 3 months worth of due diligence, increasing our insurance, going up against like 20 odd other agencies, it was a big pitch. I managed to secure like £250,000 budget for a quarter, which is like a crazy amount of money for a test piece. But we're 3 4 years in. I think getting close to wrapping up the projects now, but like it was significant in terms of the commitment that we had from the company. It's been absolutely amazing. Now, when we started, as I said, we didn't really have a full offering, so we had to kind of piece it together like anybody does at a good agency. So we had to use a range of other agency suppliers. We had freelancers. We started to do our own outreach. We didn't have a massive standing start like we would now with international, but back then we didn't have 20, 30,000 sites to lean on. It was all fresh outreach, all bespoke. Um, and having not experienced some of these individual markets, I just assumed it was going to be really easy, just like building links in the UK or the US. I thought it would be really straightforward, transactional, bit of relationship building with the site, and hey, here's an article. Do you want to post it? Thanks very much. And I thought it was going to be quite straightforward, and in some markets, it really wasn't. I'll cut to the chase. France and Germany are absolutely horrendous to do any form of link building in. So in France, I think it's just down to unfortunately down to the nature of some of the people that are there. They're really, really prickly, very difficult to talk to, don't really want to listen, won't take well to being requested to do anything, very holier than thou about everything. A bit like when you're working in digital PR, journalists just don't want to work with you or do anything that pleases you. They want to write what they want to do, and they want to post it on their schedule, on their times. They're not there to service you. Same thing with France. You have to kind of play into their ego a little bit in the French market. Now, Germany is a whole different kettle of fish. Germany, you've got press guidelines, you've got legal ramifications. You can't even indicate that you might want to sponsor something or pay to get a nice article placed in the right way in the right category when you want it. Like, you just cannot mention those sorts of phrases. You have to just dance around it for ages and ages and ages. But both of these things ultimately mean that there's more resource put into the campaign, which means we've got to charge more for it. We actually probably make less money on a German link, but it costs 2 or 3 times as much as something in the UK, which is just part of it. It's just time based. So Germany and France are really, really difficult to navigate. So just to get to the point there, my advice, whether you're doing it in house or you're an agency, either lean on a partner, speak to someone who's done it before, get some advice. Obviously, I can help. There's other people in the market who do a lot of international work. They can give you some guidelines on the phrases to use, what not to put into an outreach pitch, how to build relationships with people in different territories. So that's really key. I think something that would certainly help is to get outreachers in those local markets, not just someone who can speak German or speak French. That is also English. Like, you need to probably hire somebody who's in these territories, because there's nuances that are lost in translation. There's kind of local dialect. There's stuff that's in the news, things that you can talk about that's a bit more current. It's just a more natural conversation. People will naturally respond well. So that's the first point: is if you're going to build out a proper service, or if you're a retail customer going to things with both feet, I think you need to build a local team in every region that you want to build it. So that's certainly going to be really, really key. The next thing as well, in terms of kind of positioning, I think if you're pitching it, as certainly from an agency perspective, if you're pitching it as an opportunity, you've got to become more than an SEO agency. You've got to become a strategic partner. So I remember when I was pitching for this piece of work, this massive client back in the day, I ended up doing the biggest authority gap audit, not just page authority or domain authority, but also trying to score relevancy. I didn't have some clever script that looked at like the keywords on the page or the title or the theme of the website. I was manually checking, and this competitor was like absolutely massive, and the client was humongous. So I was going through thousands of pages manually, trying to assess exactly what the theme was and what the real world gap was. And again, I was pitching for territories. So they basically turned around and said to me, blank checkbook, what would you go after? So I filtered out 20, 30 different tier one territories and basically put together a massive game plan for them that was going to cost a couple of million quid. But three days work, 3 nights work, through to 2, 3 in the morning is worth it. We banked 4 or 5 million quid as a result, and it's made a life change to everyone in the business. So anyway, drama aside, you've got to be willing to go significantly further than any other agency that's competing for that business. So you need to put the hours in. You need to help them research market gaps, do a kind of old school SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I remember even pitching for another client that we won. I'd helped them to try and look at like warehousing costs and where you should have a distribution base, and certain countries that had spoke multiple languages where certain subfolders could support more economy of scale in terms of languages and things like that. You become a trusted entity within their kind of team of experts. You've got to do that. So those are massive parts of kind of scaling. I think with anything, you've got to start off small. I would certainly lean on an agency to start with, because you can make it their problem. You put some cash in the till, you ask them to deliver a load of work, and they will go ahead and deliver it. That's certainly the easiest way to start doing it. And then maybe, depending on the scale of the work that you're doing, how many clients you've got, how many links you need to build if you're retail, you need to then look at the economies and work out whether it's more cost effective to bring it in house. But honestly, scaling in new territories is pretty hard. You don't want to translate everything. You want to have people in these local markets. It can get expensive in terms of payroll. Last I'm going to mention is in terms of costs. Reason being, the costs are expensive. So I've mentioned it before. It's about resource, but also on the flip side, something that you've got to kind of stomach. And if you're an agency, you've got to educate your clients on is the kind of metrics, if people still use them, that you speak to, kind of third-party metrics, proportionally to what you might get in English-speaking territories. They're going to be lower. I don't know why it is, but it is. So, for example, like a good solid link in Germany might only be a DR20 or 30, whilst in the UK you'd expect to be getting 50s or 60s. I suspect it's because it's proportionate to competition. So, because it's much, much easier to engage bloggers in English-speaking territories when you go overseas, and it's less competitive and it's less frequent that these bloggers are engaging in third-party relationships. I think having lower quality links likely will move the needle more. I also think that the SERPs acts in slightly different ways. In other territories, I don't think it's quite as competitive, quite as strict. So there's a lot of research out there that talks about the algorithm being slightly different for different languages. I definitely think that's the case. Certain markets are much easier to rank in. LATAM is a really easy one to rank into. Brazil, really, really easy. Spain, even to a point, is quite easy to rank in. So, yeah, do your research when you're looking to present it to clients. You want to help them make a business case. You want to look at the authority gap. You want to look at the opportunities. So you might want to even look at things like GDP, average spend, average income for people within a certain country. I did that as well as part of the piece of research. You look at the demographic and say, well, you find 2 or 3 tier 1 territories that are growing or emerging. They've got a reasonable amount of disposable income. They've got good funding. You know that the market's quite buoyant in terms of search intent. The search volumes are there. It's a market that's already looking for the product or solution. You've got to kind of use a bit of a correlation there, like a Venn diagram, and the circles that cross in the middle. Those are going to be your targets that you want to go for. So, on the last thing I'm going to leave you with is, if you're a UK business and you've obviously watched this whole video, the UK market is struggling at the moment. Now, we do really well in the UK still, turn over the same kind of money we have done for a few years. However, I think our growth areas are not just going to be in the UK. I think they're going to be in the States because it's simply much bigger. And I think it's going to be in international spaces. So if you are a UK business that's doing a reasonable amount of spend and you've got a product that's slightly unusual, it's higher quality, you think it's better than what's been offered in other markets, I would really, really suggest now's the time to look at launching into other markets. France, Germany, Spain, LATAM, Italy, even Nordics. Those are good markets to go into. There's quite a lot of disposable income there. Some of the SERPs, as I said, are less competitive. If you're interested, more than happy to do an assessment. It's free of charge up front. I do a really big piece of work that kind of models the opportunity. As long as you're genuinely interested and in theory you've got the cash to spend, I will take the time, evenings, to put all of it together for you to help you present it to the board, the other stakeholders for sign off. I'll even come in person and present it myself if you'd like me to be there and answer any questions. But hopefully that's useful. Research, and more research, and I'm available if anyone would like to have a chat.